Hello, once again, this is Gerald, Brother Gerald, YouTube philosopher. We're going to jump right in. I'm not going to waste any time, but this is a follow-up to the first three videos that I presented on YouTube. And I'm dealing with the conversation section where we're trying to hash out that, hey, science doesn't prove God and you can't prove God, and because science can't prove God, God doesn't exist. And so it's a comment section where I'm dealing with two gentlemen, Mass Spectrician and Blaster Master 80, and they decided to kind of join forces to kind of hash this thing out. So Master Blaster 80, in long story short, he's hostile to my view, and so he gives me kind of his laydown of what I'm to do to get things straight. And so I presented to him a very long treatise showing the logical understanding of my view and relationship to what the Bible taught me and gave me understanding to know, which is very simple. I've taught this to my sons. They much younger when they were very little, and they even understand it today. So let's just go right into it. And so this is Mass Spectrician giving me his opinion, and he says, aside from the fact that you've written a Bible of your own, it constitutes little more than an argument from verbosity. The whole rambling bit about derived and contingent infinite regress is not very well laid out. So if it's not very well laid out, maybe you could ask me some questions about what I presented. So let's see if he mentions it at all. He said, teasing a proper argument out of that is nearly impossible, and I'd be remiss to fail to state I really don't follow. One thing I can tell you is that you've not addressed the objection I forwarded to this post. And the objection he forwarded was, can you give me a method, or can you demonstrate or prove God exists? So this is the whole crux of our back and forth. I can't prove, and give me a method, and if you can't prove it, then it's not real and you don't know. And I'm like, okay. So he says, your next post is better, and I appreciate it for its conciseness. However, you claim I have no explanation for my existence. This is patently false. Now, he's going to say what I said is not true, but has he demonstrated it, and has he provided a method for which he can support the claim that what I said was not true? He's not going to, but we'll continue to read. He says, I know where I came from. I know how I came to exist. It is pretty simple. I am the product of sexual reproduction. That is where babies come from. So now he's asserting that he knows how he came to exist, and he knows the means. So he's saying the means is by sexual reproduction. So he's going to try to give me a connection between this thing called sexual reproduction and his existence. That's fair. So he says that's where babies come from. And now he's connecting the sexual reproduction not only to him, but now to babies too. Okay, so are you going to demonstrate the method by which all of these things are related and how they relate to your existence? Can he answer those questions? Because this is basically what he's asserting that he can do. So he continues. Your final comment about truth and purpose has no real bearing on this subject, and I'm not sure why you appended the claim to what was otherwise a cohesive thought. So was what I was saying senseless, or was it unified? I don't know. He says it's cohesive. But my thing is, I want to understand you to the point that you want me to be adhering to these rules and regulations. But are you going to demonstrate? Are you going to provide me with a method? This is what we're looking for, people. Pay attention. So just kind of take a little notepad and we'll scribble. I used to watch a TV show where I think it was Felix the Cat, and you could put some on the TV screen where you could draw in the solution that Felix needed to save the day. And so let's just imaginary write that down. Method, and demonstrate. Those are the two things that he wants me to do. I'm jumping through these hoops. He wants me to jump like a, Bojangles. He want me to dance like Bojangles. But can you dance like Bojangles? Let's see if you got the little, funk in your junk in your trunk, funky move in your step. Okay, let's see. So he said, your third post, if you actually know something, you should be able to describe a method for which others could also gain the same knowledge. I do not assert with any conviction that you do not have such a method. So he's getting sensitive to asserting and being suspicious, because I beat up Blaster Master 80. I beat him up on that point. And so now he's getting sensitive and cautious that he's going to ask the question to find out, but he's just not, he's just unwilling to just leave it alone. I'm suspicious. I'm not saying you don't have it, but I'm suspicious. I want to say you don't, like Blaster Master 80 did, but you kind of beat him up pretty good on that point. So, so he's kind of sticking his foot in that door, but he's not willing to walk in the room and, be just bold and tell you what's going on. Okay, I'm like, okay, so that's fine. So I only suspect that that a very low standard of evidence is going to be used. So he's saying evidence is necessary to prove this point. Is going to be used for identification of truth. That said, what is the method by which you come to have knowledge, the knowledge you profess, and what demonstration beyond rhetoric can you employ to show that your methods are reliable? Please share them, and I'm going to do that. Your fourth post, thanks, I'm glad you actually care about me as a human being. I really don't expect to win the debate with you, but I hope that after our exchange, you will better understand the atheistic position, as you very clearly do not. I do not mean to seem belittling to say so, and I hope to have a meaningful dialogue with you. I do come of terse at times. Never should this be construed as though I do not care about you as a human being. But is there any reason why you should, if you're an atheist and you believe you have developed out of this evolutionary process? Because, the monkeys or the ape-like creatures you say we evolved from, we can go to the zoo and see them, and, they're not really acting in an honorable way necessarily. But you know what? I can't say that they're not, because I think when the alpha male gorilla wants to have sex with any of the females in the group, he just does it. When some of the younger males feel that they're strong enough, they've grown, and they have enough strength to overcome this alpha who's been around for a while, then he's going to take over the leadership role. And the funny thing about that monkey, the alpha male, is that not only does he deal with having the privileges of being able to have sex with all of the women in the group, he takes responsibility for the whole group. So when there's disagreements or confusion, he steps in and takes control, where it's kind of unusual that when men try to correlate their relationships and talk about being alpha males, they only want to be alpha males when it comes to getting the pretty girl and, being able to have sex with her. But if she gets pregnant or she needs something, then, he's not really the alpha male as well as the monkey. So I think, that's kind of a stinging indictment to, say that monkeys might even have more of a evolved sense of order than human beings do. But that's an argument for another day. So he's basically appreciating me as a man. And so I basically says, mass spectrician, you retreat by talking about generalities once again and offer no analysis, claiming that you're not able to understand. I find your post to be unscientific and not useful in continuing this discussion. What is your foundation for truth? Can your foundation explain where we came from, why we're here, why do we die, and what happens after death? And then I said, You need maybe to take notes to dissect my ramblings like you would do a professor at college presenting to you. I know it may be hard for you to think my view in competition to that of the tenured atheistic university professor. But if my view is so weak, why not attack it on its merits instead of name-calling or ignorance that you don't understand? My verbosity can be simplified by taking apart the presentation one sentence at a time to see if there is coherence. If not, a question would arise to ask to clarify what may appear to you as anomalous. So, Master Blaster 80 decides to step in and kind of fight for Mr. Mass Spectrician. He says, Brother Gerald, shall I get my wife, who's a linguist, to translate your incoherent ramblings? There's an argument in there. No, there isn't. It's just a stream of consciousness that is hardly legible. You don't address the criticism directly. You build straw men and attack them and then pretend like you've made some great point and you haven't. The term pigeon chest comes to mind. And then Master Blaster 80 makes some comments. He says, let's get my brother's dog to fight your wife's cat and call it an argument. Surely Brother Gerald feels ganged up upon. Let's just let him answer the question clearly. What method do you have to demonstrate your God exists? These are all bold caps. And so I give him another long treatise because I just want him to really clearly understand my point. He says, so I say, your philosophy has no answer for origin. Where did we come from? My philosophy does. Your philosophy has no answer for why we are here. My philosophy does. Your philosophy has been working on an answer to those questions for many years, and so far many have died leaving this earth without an answer. They rely on their contingent mind to generate an answer regarding a non-contingent question. How does the contingent being, by way of studying contingent things, answer the question of why the contingent thing exists? The study will only describe other contingent things and relationships, but will never, I am being absolute in asserting my position, explain the ultimate purpose for its existence and other contingent things' existence. Let's see, I think I may have made a mistake in saying what I said. Okay, no, I did. I'm clear. I said it would never explain the ultimate purpose for its existence and other non-contingent things' existence. This is why the Christian can do research and build MRI machines, become neurosurgeons, electricians like me, scientists like me and you if you're willing to do the work, and philosophers like me if you are also willing to think and not become emotional about what is being presented. The building of these wonderful tools that enable you to do, and there's that notion of intention, a lot of things. The manipulation of matter to accomplish the goal is proof that you know God because you don't know where the materials you manipulate come from. I am asserting now, and I'm going to make a claim based on my philosophical view and what I stated before. You don't know where the matter, substance that makes up reality comes from, which is the origin. You don't know where these entities called scientists come from. You have no way of proving that the way a few people that you've seen born was the same way you got here, but somehow you're able to communicate and coordinate your intentions with these other entities to accomplish a particular result or produce a particular thing. You do not know how this takes place. You say it doesn't matter. Are you saying it doesn't matter because your philosophical view has no answer, or because the statement it doesn't matter is true? Are you saying it doesn't without knowing the purpose of the entity that caused the Big Bang of you promote as true, had purpose in doing so? The only way to know is for that same entity that had the power to create the whole thing is to communicate. If we're able to communicate, maybe the ability is possessed by the entity that made you, bearing the image or being like the entity, directly or indirectly, information to you where you came from and why you are here. You have no excuse to deny this truth because by way of reasoning, you reach a point that we are now. God delivered this message to you by way of a book, by way of somebody telling you, me. I told you there are 3 ways to know things in this universe. You experience it, someone tells you, or you read it out of a book. You have the scientist telling and showing you. He's relying on his intellect and the manipulating of other contingent things. His mind is also contingent, but because he will die to answer questions about the non-contingent source. Why do you believe them over what I presented? This is not a scientific question, but a philosophical one. You can use the tools of science, logic, and reason to arrive at this point, but you eventually have to believe that scientist has access to finding out origin and purpose by way of his work, or his work is an exercise in futility. It is an exercise in futility and proof the method does not work, on the basis of many scientists going to their graves thinking they would get an answer by this method. So I've given and demonstrated it's futile. I've given him some cases of the futility, because for all of the wonderful discoveries that science has been able to make, they haven't answered the question, and so many men have, quote, relied on science to give them an answer that science is just not able to give, because it's a philosophical view. It's philosophical. It's in the whole thing, it's of the mind. Now the thing is it of the mind that, you know, it's totally dependent upon human minds. So the question would be, if it is, then which human mind is going to be the one that remains long enough for every other human brain to come into existence and depart? And that, to me, is the universality of this philosophy. You can, you know, deny and you can accept all you want in this reality, but on a philosophical basis, if it's of the mind, then which mind is the one that is controlling? So we have to see, you know, we are all finite and contingent. So if we're finite and contingent, we're here but for a minute and then we go off somewhere, you know, but here it is, the people that remain are able to access and deal with, you know, this idea of origin and all of this. So we have this continuation of the question being asked by future and past generations. So that's my only demonstration. I demonstrated it, and he's able to actually see and understand what I'm demonstrating. So why do you, okay, so, oh my goodness, what happened? Okay, so let me go back to where I started, because I'm kind of a little lost, because I kind of highlighted something here. So I told you there are 3 ways to know things in this universe. You experience it, someone tells you, or you read it out of a book. You have the scientist telling you, and he's relying on his intellect and manipulating of other things. His mind is also contingent because he will die. To answer questions about the non-contingent source. Why do you believe them over what I presented? This is not a scientific question, but a philosophical one. You can use the tools of science, which is logic and reason, to arrive at this point, but you eventually have to believe that the scientist has access to finding out origin and purpose by way of his work, or his work is an exercise in futility. So now I'm going to assert it's an exercise in futility, and the proof. I'm going to prove the method does not work on the basis of many scientists going to their graves thinking they would get an answer by this method. They went to their graves and the answer was not given. And you believe the scientist who tells you, honestly, I don't know where we came from or why we are here, and you accept his honest answer. But if I tell you where we came from and why we are here, the one who baked the cake did it for these reasons, you say no. But like a scientist, I too manipulate matter to accomplish the production of many wonderful things. What does any of that have to do with the question posed? Where did we come from and why we are here? Please get your wife that is a linguist. Ask her to read my long post to Mass Spectrician, the one he responds to by saying I'm being very verbose and blah, blah, blah. First that, then read this one. This is a logical argument. I can show how it fits the Bible view, but it's not necessary for me to do, for you see and understand the reasoning behind it. You need to calm down and just think. Think about what I'm saying. Don't bias her evaluation by telling her your opinion. Let her speak. My wife tries to find out what I think, and she does, before she answers my question. She hates when we disagree, and that's really a good quality. I don't like disagreeing with my wife. I know you have a good wife because you respect her and presented her to me as a capable decider of the controversy. I'm willing to subject my view to her analysis. Now, she is a studied linguist, so let's see if she can apply that discipline. And a discipline means that it's a focused, kind of controlled, effort of the mind and the body. Okay, so let's see if she can do that. I'm willing to subject my view to her analysis. As for you, I have one request. Don't think about what you're going to say to defeat me or say to yourself, he's stupid, believing the Bible. Just logically follow what I'm saying. I can't make it more simpler than this. So Master Blaster 80 or Blaster Master 80, he comes back and says, your philosophy has answers, but that doesn't mean they are correct. Gerald, and I want you to know that what I believe is true. I don't believe things because some book says so. Your philosophy cannot be demonstrated to be true, so you are in the same boat as I am. So he's trying to get us back on this even footing here. And to me, I would kind of consider what he's saying. I'm going to carefully consider what he's saying. He says you don't know these answers are true, and you just believe them. So he's making assertions again. But where are you demonstrating, and what method are you showing that you arrived at this conclusion? He said, I don't know does not mean God did it, Gerald. That's an argument from ignorance, and I reject that claim. And you are free to do so, my friend. And I do look at Blaster Master 80 as my friend. He said, I told you there are 3 ways to know things. So he's quoting me in this universe. He says, wrong, I reject all 3 of those. So let's see what he has to say. The way we come to knowledge is by being able to falsify things or test them. I could experience a magic money in my closet that gives me advice. That wouldn't make the experience true. I accept testable experiences, not just everything I experience. I've hallucinated before. I don't accept extraordinary claims that are told to me. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. I don't believe everything I read in books either. So I reject that claim as well. Swing and a miss. So he has asserted and he's rejected, but he hasn't demonstrated how these things are not so. So basically, he quoted, please get your wife as a linguist. And he said, and so he's basically saying, oh, she did, and she laughed and facepalm most of the way. Facepalm, I guess she was, oh my God, what is he saying? And facepalm most of the way through it because you don't even understand how science works. You think it's based on authority, and it's not. It's called empirical evidence and data, as she put it. Okay, so she's going to tell me that science is based on empirical data, and I guess it's a method that demonstrates, because they keep asking me to generate a method and demonstrate. Now I will say that there is a method to the study of science, and science does demonstrate, but science assumes a lot of things in order to get to a point where they are today. So she also pointed out that you're not answering the question, as we have all been saying. Okay, so she's saying I'm just rambling on. Okay, so my next comment is Well, basically, it's a more of a caring kind of response, that I care and I want you guys to just think and understand my perspective, because obviously you guys are not understanding what I'm saying. And so, and then I kind of chastised Mass Patrician that he had that you have an attitude that wishes to argue. I will not waste my time. You have your mind made up that I'm wrong. So to demonstrate to you would be an opportunity for you to argue. So if you don't want to just argue, explain to me how you are the product of sexual reproduction. Set the example for me to follow. You want me to demonstrate? You demonstrate first, and I'll analyze your view by the standard you developed. Now, if we scroll down here and see if he did. So here we go. He responds by, so you do not have a method and you're not interested in discussing the matter with me. So I asked him to lead by example, because you demand this method, you demand demonstration. So he basically starts telling me to shut the F up and quit trying to tell other people how I think. You don't know and you cannot know because you refuse to talk about it. I have totally opened the door with one simple question and you refuse to answer it because it is argumentative. It's a effing question. Cat, what do we call cats? We call them pussy cats. So he uses the first word, answer the effing question, cat. So if you're afraid of answering the question, then maybe your ideas are rubbish. What abject cowardice. Now he's calling me a coward. It's never an argument. You can't argue with a non-argument. You're just numb-minded, argument. And simpleton, professing your ignorance, expecting people to stumble over your long-winded horse. He calls me horse manure, but it's more vulgar. Thinking you have a nugget of genius buried in the pile. It ain't working. The internet isn't an echo chamber. Go back to church if you want more of that. Okay. So, Master Blaster 80, he said earlier, he made a comment. He said, do you know if God exists? And he says, quote, no. Okay, the test is over. There's your answer, Gerald. We don't know that a God exists, and we reject your authority as a source of anything but myths. So I said, basically followed his lead. I said, Master Blaster 80, to answer your question, do you know if a God exists? I say, yes. There are many gods. There's the Muslim God, Hindus have millions, and you have science. The test is over. Man, that was very easy. Thank you. Empirical? The definition of empirical is that you rely on, derived from, observation or experiment. Verifiable means of observation or experiment. And then the second definition means of or being a philosophy of medicine emphasizing practical experience and observation over scientific theory. So we have this theory and they have a premise that they want to support, and they observe and they experience, and the experience is the observation. So that kind of goes against what he rejected, because I told him you're going to experience it, you're going to read it in a book, and that's an observation. Somebody's going to tell you, and you're going to experience what they're telling you. So he's rejected something, but here it is, he's actually using the very thing that he's rejected. So I don't know how to read that, but that's a whole nother issue. I'm getting ready to hammer the whole thing and basically end this discussion. So I'm basically going to respond to Mass Spectrician, and basically I said, so for one who lacks knowledge to a question I claim to know, you seem certain I have none. If you are so sure, why the hostility and the name calling? If you were reading and analyzing my presentation, you should have been able to point out the many problems with my view. You view things as a scientist, right? Well, your view thinks because it has certain command and skill manipulating things that somehow proves a metaphysically necessary being does not exist. If you do not accept that science admits to not knowing and is unable to answer the question of origin, where do we come from and purpose, why are we here, why do you expect that any scientific method or test could demonstrate or prove God's existence? Okay, so Master Blaster 80 comes back and he's going to defend. So Master Blaster 80 comes and says, you like science except for what drives science and helps it improve. You think that's a flaw or a weakness. Come on, Gerald, you can't have your cake and eat it too. I like dancing except the part where you have to move your body. That's a fair analogy to what you're saying. Science has proceeded with a total disconnect from its early foundations, that there is a God who made it all. You know why that is? Because saying God did it doesn't matter. It doesn't answer a damn thing. Now, with all that said, I said you never responded to why humans are the only animals that make love. That's because you're mistaken. Take dolphins, for example. They have sex for fun, just like humans do. This is a subject I know lots about, and you clearly don't. Animals have empathy, a sense of fairness, and they love. Elephants will mourn the death of another elephant for hours or days. Then they will even mourn the elephant when they come across the body or skeleton again years later. So you're just flat out wrong here, Gerald. There are plenty of animals that make love and have love for one another. You didn't subject my own view. You build a straw man, then attack it constantly like it means something, and it doesn't. Whiff, 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 you're out. So I've swung 3 times according to him, and we're done. So I want you to carefully hear everything that I'm going to say to this man, because I think as a Christian, this will be critical for your moving forward in life. So I said, Master Blaster 80, and I know he's going to be shocked when he sees this. I said, you are correct. By George, I think he's got it. What you do as a scientist has nothing to do with answering the question of origin and purpose. So you manipulate that which you had nothing to do with coming into existence. You do not know the true purpose for those things. You cannot account for your own existence or purpose. You deal with things that are all derived. So how does that get you back to that which is not derived? Somehow you want to extrapolate. You want to connect this skill and manipulation and expertise in manipulating these derived and contingent things to mean God does not exist, which does not follow. Check with your wife for any errors in my logical argument. Finally, we are in agreement. So it looks like we're going to graduate on time, because hypothetically speaking, we were analyzing this thing and we had to come to a scientific point of agreement. So we're there, and I can go to the head of the department and says, me and my partner here in the lab finally reached the same conclusion. Great. So now that I got my diploma in my hand, I'm ready to graduate, I can run out to the parking lot, put all of my gear back in, and drive home and praise God for another fine day of living on this earth. So now moving forward, I continue to tell him, moving forward, you want me to demonstrate God. Give me the parameters that I need to provide you with that will prove to you God's existence. I have demonstrated my view already. There's that word. I did that. You admit, you and science, that you do not understand the physical world. Early in the post, he says this is the strength of science, that we don't know and new information keeps coming in. And I'm saying, okay, so we're in agreement with that. So you are getting new information, and the level of knowledge about the physical realm is changing. So if you do not understand the physical world, if I tell you of metaphysical things, how will you understand or believe? And you know what? That saying kind of reminds me of a point that Jesus made when he was talking to Nicodemus. And I think that would be in the Gospel of John, and I think it was chapter 3, where Jesus is talking to Nicodemus. Just look up. He says, Nicodemus comes, he calls him good teacher, and he starts asking questions. And Nicodemus starts talking about, what does it mean to be born again? Do I enter into my mother's womb and come out? And Jesus says, you know, you are the educated here and the leader of the Jewish people, but here it is, you don't even understand physical things, and here it is, if I tell you about spiritual, how are you going to understand? So he's illustrating that, Nicodemus knows a lot, but he's a little dumb. So you might be the same boat here, Master Blaster 80. So here we go. If you do not understand the physical world, if I tell you metaphysical things, how will you understand or believe? You say the scientific method is the best way, and he did. But scientists admit that they don't know where all things came from or why they are here. So why can this method that admits they possess no answer to develop a test to answer the question, they are honest enough to say we have none? So you sound foolish to ask the question using a method that admits it can't answer the question. I guess you don't believe them on that one. Oh, no, I meant 2 points. So your methodology is incapable. It lacks capacity or ability to satisfy what you are attempting to achieve. So again, we see the limitation of the scientific enterprise, and that is fully able and capable in dealing with physical things using a host of assumptions. And I define assumption as a thing that is accepted as true or certain to happen without proof. So proof, you want me to prove by demonstrating. So here it is, science based on an assumption. And you want me to deal with an empirical analysis. So empirical means that it is based on or concerned with verifiable observation or experience rather than theory or pure logic. So now you also can see, so you use, and this is I continue, I said, so you use a system that tells you we will not demonstrate, we will accept certain conditions as true, but you wish to make me demonstrate. You have all the demonstration you need. You know the true God, obey him and be blessed. Do otherwise, and he will keep his promise and give you justice. Peace to you and all who read. So I just hope that after all of this is a long video, that in the end that this will get the Christian to be strengthened, to get the non-Christian to think more clearly, and be blessed.